Welcome back to Timberborn and the settlement of the Steeltide. We're on cycle 35 and things are looking up for the colony. Last episode we just put in a pipe to bring a new set of water all the way down into our colony's main dam, and that's going to free us up to start some big new projects. In this episode we're going to start hollowing out the mesa for Junkertown, explore some of the properties of pipes, and we're going to build a new aqueduct to tap into a new water source. Now, as we go into this episode, there are two things on my mind. First off is Junkertown. Junkertown is the land of the bots. We've got our bot manufacturing and some of our heavy industry here. I want to really start taking this from this barren wasteland and seeing what I can do to make it a real city. The other thing I want to do is take a look at our pipe to make sure it's working the way it should. We got this set up last episode, and you can see it takes water over from this spillway all the way on the other side of the map, takes it way down this river, and deposits water back in our main dam. Now, I think this is working the way it should, but we can jump over to the Beaver test world and just make sure we fully understand what the deal is with pipes and see if there's a way to make it faster. So, starting this episode, we're in a 21-day drought, but we've got lots of water stockpile. The only downside is you can see our population has been inching downward and we're not producing beavers. And that's because I poorly managed last episode and we ran out of berries. Thankfully, that's not going to be a problem going forward because I've planted some new berries, and so we should see our population starting to tick back up very shortly. All that set aside, let's talk Junkertown. So, the idea I had for Junkertown was to hollow out this entire mesa all the way down to the bottom of the map and then make a multi-tiered city inside. I figured the city is going to be claustrophobic and close, but that's fine because I don't want any real beavers living there. It's just going to be a land for the bots. And I figure we can just compress this with all sorts of industry, maybe a ton of number crunchers and other things in here. Now, good news, bad news. Right now we're pretty short on logs, and that's because I spent a lot of them up here last episode when we're starting to build this retaining wall. The good news, however, is that we have a ton of dynamite, and that's what we're going to need to hollow out this entire mesa. And thankfully we've got two districts going on now. We've got a district in the north, and that district is all responsible for building our dam. And we've got our main colony district, which Junkertown is currently in. So I can keep both of these working simultaneously. I'll get all this dynamite going in Junkertown, and the dam construction could continue in the background. Alright, so that's our first set of TNT positioned, and I've got dirt being placed in here. And the idea is that this bad water is going to get routed all the way down through here and then reconnected with this pool. And we're going to do a little bit of musical chairs here, because I can't get all of Junkertown done at the same time because Junkertown is providing the resources for its own construction. So we're going to have to prepare kind of the left-hand side of Junkertown, get it down, get manufacturing moved over there, and then we can address the right-hand side of Junkertown. It's going to take more than a few days to get this first round of TNT laid down. Let's go take a look at our other project I mentioned. Let's go all the way north and see how our pipe is doing. So as a refresher for our pipe, if you haven't seen the earlier episode, what we've done is cap this set of water way at the top of the map here. You can see we've got two pipes laid at the very bottom of the map. We've got good water and we've got a bad water pipe. This gets routed all the way across the map, all the way to the center of our colony, and the bad water line gets routed eventually off the edge of the map. The other addition that I added was this spillway. So the idea is that water connected to a pipe should share the same height everywhere in the map. And this spillway, I want it to be the least important area where water should go. Since this spillway is higher than this dam, I expect water to come out in our dam first. And to make sure we're maximizing water coming out of that spillway, I've started to dynamite out a dam up here. And it looks like more or less they finished the first round of work. So I'm going to just have them also continue dynamiting because, look at that, we've got a ton of dynamite here as well. And I'm going to throw in another set here. And these workers in our work town, they're on a separate district, so they can continue doing this independent from the work down south. And before we detonate all of this, I'm going to put down another layer of levees all the way around the edge. And that's because it's going to be easier for the builders to get access to all this stuff now before I go ahead and destroy that dynamite. Now, with all our construction there kind of slow, I'm really hoping that this set of oak trees that I planted last episode is going to start growing up soon. Unfortunately, you're going to see a lot of these are dead. And that's because we don't have a whole lot of water in our upper river. And so that goes into something I want to diagnose with our pipe. I was hoping that this spillway would have given us more water last episode, and I'm not sure if that's just because I had deeper water that was in here, it had more backlog work to get to, or if there was a problem with our pipe. So with that, I think we're going to take a quick jog back over to the Beaver test world. Here we are over in a test world, and I've been using this to experiment a bunch of different ways with pipes. So the first thing I want to take a look at are these 4 dams right here. So you can see what I've done is I've created 4 dams of the same size and attached them to slightly different sources of water, all of them at the same speed. The first 2 here, or the first 3 here, are just tests of different sizes of pipes. I've got a 1x1, a 1x2, and a 1x3. And then this one at the very end here is a test where water is already at the top level that you already need. So this would be more like the classic case of a river running. And you can see if I reset the water simulation here, these are more or less all increasing at the same rate. In fact, the ones that seem the slowest are the 2 in the middle, which is a little surprising because you'd think, hey, the pipe's bigger, shouldn't they be going faster? And I think the difference is that the ones in the middle, they're slightly slower because they have to fill the pipe with additional water. So that's kind of interesting. These water sources are all 5 CMS, the same as our river back in the Steeltide video. And this shows that we can get all of that water down in a very, very tiny pipe, and it seems to be working. And we can verify that with the water gauge down at the end here. We can see we've got roughly 5 CMS coming out. In fact, we can push this to extremes to see how much water we can put through there. And if I go all the way back down to the source of this, I can set this one to 8, and I'm actually going to even add a second water source for a total of 16 CMS of water. And what do you know? If I take a look at that stream gauge now, I've got 16 CMS going through that. So that means we've taken 16 CMS, compressed it into a 1x1, and then uncompressed it out here back into a dam. So I think that shows for our pipe, the size of the pipe is not really the concern. And this takes me to the next set of experiments that I've configured here. So these are a lot closer to what we've got in the Steeltide video. I've got a water source underground, I've got it zigzagging a long distance, and I've got it coming up at the top somewhere else where it's being distributed into a dam. I've got the exact same one with a pipe that is slightly larger. And finally, I've got something where it's the world's ugliest aqueduct. But this shows the classic way that you would do it, where you'd get the water at the top, keep it at the level you want, and then dump it into the dam at the end. And this is where it gets interesting. If I reset all of these simulations, we'll notice that the water in the classic aqueduct area is actually finishing sooner. In fact, it looks like it's leading by quite a bit. By the time the aqueduct solution has reached the top, our one high pipe still has 3 rows to go. And this is really interesting because what I noticed is that while this pipe takes some time to catch up in filling up this dam, once they get going, they actually do have the same flow rate. Both the pipe dam and the aqueduct dam end up with roughly 5 CMS. So all the water is going through. It just takes the pipe a little bit longer to get started. So I'm noticing the pipe maybe takes half a day to a day longer to get up to steam, but once it's flowing, it's just as fast as the regular aqueduct solution. I think we're okay there. That brings me to the final test. The exact same layout, except this time I've added a spillway, just like we have in the Steeltide video. It works just like the regular pipe, like we'd expect it to, except this time it's also populating the spillway in addition to the dam. One interesting thing you'll note here is that the spillway actually goes much higher than the dam. So the water is right up there, even though the water down here only goes up maybe half the distance. You would expect these to equalize. In fact, they do over time. It's just kind of that mad rush in the beginning that seems to push this water up higher. If I compare this spillway version to our non-spillway version, by the time the non-spillway version is up near the top, the spillway version is actually lagging pretty far behind. And that's because the spillway is taking up a lot of the water that otherwise could go over here. So I think this does point to a flaw that I've got over in our Steeltide one. I think having a 2x2 spillway is kind of overkill, and it's kind of eating into the flow of the water. So it's okay if it's decorative up to that, but I think it would be actually a lot faster if I made this a 1 wide spillway all the way up to the top of the map, because it's going to be less water that I'm wasting to have this overflow. So I think that proves that our overall approach to our pipe back in the Steeltide world is going to work. The only thing we should probably change is make our spillway a little bit more narrow so we're not wasting as much water. That said, let's go back to the Steeltide. And we're back. After all those tests, I think I'm feeling a lot more confident about the configuration of our pipe system, but I do want to use what we found and make this spillway a little bit more narrow. I'm okay with the size of it here because I want to put decorations, let's say like a monument at some point on top. But at least in the interior of this, we should be able to fill it up and make it so it's not so big. It's a little bit wasteful compared to if we just spent 4 going all the way up, but I'm okay with the decoration. And, you know, I don't want to have to tear this all out and rebuild it all again from scratch. Alright, that should bring us all the way up to the top here, and then once it's at the top, it can spill out in all sorts of different directions. Well, that should give our work camp bot beavers up here some stuff to do for a while. Let's head on back to Junkertown. Well, Junkertown is making some progress, but they've still got a ways to go. Well, I think at the very least, I'm going to spend some of this time to prioritize the redirection of the bad water. And that way we can start decommissioning everything else here. Something that we could do to speed up this effort, though, is get our bots faster. Now, there are 2 things that we can use to speed up our bots. There are control towers, which we only have 1, and the other one I haven't built yet is a grease factory. And this is going to use, I believe, some of our extract and some of our canola oil. Well, let's start with the grease. We've got canola here, and I think we've got extract here. We've got these engines that aren't being used anymore. I think it's going to be fine. We can just put some factories right here. So we'll start with 2, and then I'll also put a storage container here for grease. Next up, let's add more control towers. Now, control towers are going to need science, and the 2 control towers we have now are consuming a lot of our science. So I think before we add some, we should put down some number crunchers. The number crunchers, luckily, don't need to be manned, they just take power. And thankfully, we've got a ton of power thanks to our power generator down here. So we could spam a bunch of number crunchers on this map and then use it to power our control towers elsewhere. We just need to find a good place to put them. Well, up near our main dam, we did have our existing number cruncher here, and we had a bunch of engines that weren't being used. So I think this is a perfect place to put another number cruncher. And this should give us enough headway for at least 3 new towers, which I can place those kind of spread out around the top of Junkertown. And it looks like we finally got some of that bad tide diverted out of our initial power plant. So fortunately, I'm going to delete all of this now. We are going to get a lot of resources back though, so at least we've got that going for us. And with 1 more day before this drought ends, I think we've made some pretty good progress on the TNT here. You can see we just have a little bit more to get down filled in this area here. And back upriver, I see that we've made pretty good progress with our dam structure. There's just a few places here and there. We'll see how much we can actually make use of this. I have a feeling we won't even be able to use what we've dynamited out, but we'll see. Heading back to Junkertown, I am noticing something. We're running low on our extract because we're using it for all our TNT. And that's because we've run out of all our bad water here. And that's pretty surprising, but these pumps just cannot keep up with the number of centrifuges that we've got. So I think what we're gonna have to do is just make some platforms in there and try to stick some more in here. In fact, we don't need this power line running all the way across either. We could probably get rid of that. And that would let us potentially fit in another round of pumps down this run. We'll see how well doubling our pumps does first. And we're back into the good season. Now, for this season, I'm hoping that we actually have a long one. Because last time we had kind of this double whammy where we had 2 really long droughts and then the smallest good season that we've had for a long time. Now, I think our spillway is in the much more narrow form now, all the way down, so that's good. And I see the water starting to flow. If I look up all the way up at our main dam, I can see water starting to flow through that pipe. So it looks like roughly at the beginning of day 2 is when the pipe starts to build up momentum. So we'll see how much we're gonna manage to stockpile during this season. And again, I'm hoping for a long one, maybe like 8 days instead of our usual 6. Something I will do while we've got the wet season here though, is you'll notice I have this little strip of dynamite here. I want to extend this river just a little bit longer. And that's because that one wide, narrow strip I think was leading to some evaporation. And unfortunately, it looks like we're unlucky again this time, and we've only got a 6-day wet season. The good news is at least with that increased flow, we are topping out our dams much quicker this time. Day 3, I think we're already getting to the point where everything is mostly full, except for this one, so our spillway should have some time to fill up this time. In fact, our main dam is filled up. That should close off our pipe very, very shortly, and our spillway has come online. So that's going to give us 2 full days of getting as much water as we can up here. Now, one thing I am going to do is I noticed that we were so quick at filling up this dam up here that we've got too much water now coming from here and being wasted off the edge of the map through the side here. I don't like that. What I would much rather do is if there's going to be water wasted, I want to push back into the upper river. And I think we can do that very, very cheaply just by putting levees on this side and moving our dams over to the other side, because there is a height difference on the 2 sides of this dam. We'll just get some bots in there to seal that up very quickly, and that will help us out just a little bit with this upper river filling up. I don't want to lose a drop of water if I can help it. And we're back to the dry season. Well, thankfully here it did have pity on us, and it gave us only a 13-day drought. So next wet season that comes, we should be able to stockpile even more. But with that, let's go check back at Junkertown. Well, all that TNT looks to have finally been laid. So let's go ahead and get started with our first round of destruction. I really hope this doesn't crash my PC. Well, there we go. This is just round 1. As you can see, I've got this hollow bowl here, but we're going to have to go all the way down to the bottom of the map. So this is going to be quite the long haul for us. Let's get some workers down here. They need to get down here so they can start on the next round of work. So I'm going to keep it nice and simple. Just make one road all the way in. And guess what? We're just going to put down more TNT all the way through all of this. This is a big investment. It's not really practical, but I think it is going to be cool looking when I finish building it. Well, this is going to be a lot of TNT to get through. While they're doing that, let's check back on our water situation with the pipe. I do want to make one minor adjustment going into this. I noticed with the pipe, once the pipe gets up to steam, it's fast. But I notice it takes a while to switch gears once water has to go through a different route of the pipe. So once this is full, it takes a while for the spillway to pick up steam and redirecting the water. And what I'm noticing is that the pipe kind of seems to get distracted when there are multiple, I guess, T-junctions here. So I've got this T-junction right here where one goes up to the dam and the other one goes down river. And this seems to be where things go wrong. It gets very confused and tries to send water down here and then it splashes back. And I think that might be contributing to the slowdown. So in the wet season, I think I'm going to redirect some of this power line here and seal this off. That way the water only has one choice, and that's going up to the dam. That does limit the usefulness of the water pipe the rest of the way. Maybe later we can connect it to a different source. I just want to see if this helps a little bit. Now, I think that what I'm going to do is just put a sluice gate over in here. I'm going to mark that closed for now, and then I'm just going to redirect some of this power line up and out of the pipe and then back in the other side. Just like this. So we've got the water now flowing through here, capped off there, and we've got the power being routed around. So we'll see if that serves us any better coming in next season. The other thing I'd like to explore is giving more work to our beavers up here. So you can see our work camp was very, very busy early on getting all this dynamite laid, but after that, they don't really have much to do. And I think I can have them working in the background on another long-term project, especially since they've got all these logs here. And that is tapping in to a new water source. I want to tap into this source over here, and instead of using pipes, because I sometimes find pipes fiddly, I'm just going to make an aqueduct, send all that over here, and dump the water into our extra dam. I think that will be a good long-term project for our work camp. It is a very long haul, but it will give them something to do. So first up, we need to make a road over there for them. I don't like doing this, but I'm going to have to tear out some of those trees, and then we can probably use a road over here. From here, we're just going to make a zigzag pattern all the way up. More stairs, and then that should kind of get them up to our platform up here, where we're once again going to need to have a giant set of stairs to get all the way to the top of this mesa. Now from here, we've got our work cut out for us. We've got some scrap that's going to be in the way of anything I want to do. So what we can probably get going is a scavenger over here, a few of them, and they can just put everything they've got within an industrial pile. We'll also need a lumberjack, and he can go ahead and cut down all of these trees up here. My plan will be to TNT all of this, make a straight aqueduct right over to this side, and then we're going to dump all of this water in here, which should feed into our upper lake. So if that's the plan, we should also get some beavers working on our dam structure over here, which all of this is going to connect to. Now, this part isn't as important. I'm just kind of putting it down there to remind myself when we eventually hollow out the rest of this mountain. This is the important part. We're going to need to dam up this part. This is 3 wide. Maybe we'll plan on a 3 wide aqueduct lining up just in the middle there. So that would put kind of the receiving side of this dam somewhere over here. Just kind of right there. That's going to use up a lot of our timber, but at least it puts it to good use. And in fact, we'll probably need a few extra stairs in here to get access to all this stuff. All right, this is going to keep the work camp busy. Hopefully they get started on this, and then once everything is cleared out, we can make that aqueduct all the way across. Now, with all this scrap going in here, I'm putting all this scrap in these piles just to get rid of it. But what I'm thinking is we should actually be shipping this out of our work camp back into our main camp. So if I take a look into our distribution, I think there's a setting in here that would let it be sent away. So I think what I do is, in this case, I say I do not import, and the export threshold I think I should set to 0%. So we'll see. That should hopefully get them sending it out of here, because ideally all our smelters over in our main colony, they could actually make use of this scrap. Next, as we prepare to tap into this source, there's a couple things I want to do. One is I want to make a bad water diversion system, and the second is I still want to surface some of the water over here. So for that at least, I'm going to have some of the bots bring in some dirt, even this terrain up at the edge here, and then what we can do is build kind of a dam structure. Well, I think I'm going to square this up a bit. That way I can start prepping for the diversion system. To get rid of this bad water here, I think I'm just going to send it off the edge of the map, all the way down here. We're going to dynamite all of this space out, and then we can create a diversion system. And like I like to do, I'm going to bring in some logs into here. All right, I think that's it for the work camp work queue. You can see they've gone through most of their logs in here, but thankfully, with all this storage I added earlier, we've got a big buffer of storage. Let's go take a look back at Junkertown. Wow, that's actually more progress than I was expecting. You can see we're halfway through this round of TNT, and I'm expecting, I don't know, maybe at least 2 more rounds after this. A total of 4 rounds to get to the end of the map. And you know, as I look at them, down all this TNT, I do notice our population is starting to come back up. There is something I think we could do to help with our population gain though, and that's increasing our happiness, because the greater the happiness, the longer these beavers live. And I really haven't been putting down too many of these nice perk buildings. There's a couple that I think would really help, and I think that's really the theater as well as maybe this wind tunnel. And they all take power, but we've got lots of power thanks to our power network. And I'm thinking maybe we could put some really close to downtown by splicing into our power network down here. So say, for example, we took this line right here, destroyed it, and made it a T-junction. Then we can make a little inlet here of TNT and then run it all the way up to the surface. So that's going to give us a source of power on this half of the colony. This is kind of the same technique we did over on the other side of the map, over when we connected our food plant. Okay, with this all built, we'll just make sure that the beavers prioritize getting that sealed off so the pipe doesn't leak, especially since the wet season is about to start at any moment. And then let's plan our entertainment up here. Now, our theater has to be somewhat inset into the ground, so maybe we can approach it a little bit like this. And the idea is, I want these to be connected, but they're oddly shaped. So what I'm thinking is if I stagger them like this, I can put just some maybe decorations on the side. Say, for example, some lanterns, some braziers, and then even some shrubs. All right, that's going to be our plan for our new entertainment district. And I think we can just repeat that pattern of alternating them if we want some more. And that's good news because with the wet season back and such a short drought, I'm hoping that we actually get some time to fill up some of this upper lake and river here. Now, I haven't exploded all this dynamite yet because it hasn't really mattered because we're not stockpiling enough water yet. So hopefully this wet season is going to make a difference because that last drought was pretty short. Let's take a look back up at our other mesa where we're going to tap into the other water source. I can see that they made good progress over here, and we were able to dynamite out another little run of water. Now, the idea for this place long term is we're going to have sluice gates over here, let good water through, and then a gate over here is going to take the bad water off the edge of the map. We're just going to put gates all the way there to make sure that we drain all of this. And I think for now, all of these runs are going to be open because I don't have that bad tide diversion system configured yet. And I think long term, if this is going to be feeding two sources, I should go downriver and make sure that I have gates all the way down here. That way I can configure these to only open based on the depth of this lake. That way I can conditionally get all this water running on down here as a series of gates that only run when they need to. Okay, looking pretty good up here. How are we looking at the rest of the colony? Well, this is promising. It looks like that spillway is running, and I see that we've got a lot of extra water topped off of our upper river now. In fact, this is getting pretty close to the top. And if I look up at our main colony, our main dam's looking pretty good, and our two side dams are more or less pretty much filled. If we just open that up, yeah, this is pretty good. So I think we're finding a good balance and flow of that pipe now. And a bad tide approaches. I am not too concerned given we've got a bad tide diversion system everywhere. I am seeing our spillway work very well, and given the length of this wet season, we've had time to fill up a ton of water. So overall, we are in very good shape this time. We might actually have to detonate some of that TNT. Maybe one thing we could do is, I think we might be able to rush a bad water diversion system over here really quick. Now, this is going to be kind of messy, but I think what we could do is detonate this run all the way off to the edge of the map, and in that time, I think we're just going to put down a bad water diversion system right here. So these ones are going to open when there is a contamination, and all of these ones over here, they're going to open when there is no contamination. And I'm just going to run another set of TNT over there, just getting the bad water really low compared to the surface. All right, that destroyed. I think all of this bad water diversion system is done. So we'll get to see this in play in only a couple days. Everything else is looking good. This is almost cleared up, so we're almost ready to actually start building that next aqueduct. Speaking of our main dam, I'm looking over here, and this is looking very good. We've got everything filled up all the way. I'm liking it. And I'm actually seeing us start to fill up this upper dam here too, so that's even better. In fact, based on this, I'm seeing us just get to the top and starting to fill in this dam. Well, I'll let that go for now, but this is a good sign. I think we're getting very close to being ready to detonate some of that TNT. Oh, and also good news, taking a peek up here, I see that our power was finally connected, and we've got our new fun district up and running. Hopefully we'll get some beavers coming in there pretty soon, and that should hopefully start inching up our well-being and with it our population. In fact, another easy thing we could probably do to boost our happiness is maybe put in a few other campfires. I'm not sure if they're all being used. We'll see if this helps. And here comes our bad tide. Actually, you know, this is the first time our new bad tide diversion system is going to be tested out. Let's take a look and see how it works. So I do see the bottom pipe did open. That's perfect. That's just what we want. That's flooding through there. I think that looks purple, but I think that's a rendering artifact. I don't see any water actually getting out of there. Okay. That is good. Let's check to see how our new diversion system up here is faring. Well, that one doesn't look like it's faring as well. What's going on here? This gate should be open, and it is not. Shouldn't these have closed? Oh, I have them set to open. Get those configured. But still, these back there should have opened. Oh, there they go. That was really interesting. It was surprising that this wasn't getting contaminated. It was just that there was water flowing in here, so all the bad water, as it appeared, was being pulled in this direction. Well, this is all kind of contaminated now, but this will eventually get diluted next season. So all bad water diversion systems are up and operational. Now, when I see these guys have cleared all that scrap, well, maybe I can just relocate them over here and get rid of this scrap while we're at it. Well, this is looking good. I think we're about ready to plan the aqueduct. But before we do, I want to take one last look back at Junkertown to see if they finally finished that TNT. And if you look at that, that's looking pretty promising. Yeah, I think that's all done. So we'll detonate round 2. Well, this is looking pretty funny, but we gotta keep going down deeper and deeper. So we'll put in another set of mega stairs all the way down into the bottom of this pit, and another set of construction roads. Yet again, put down more TNT. I think this is the most ambitious terraforming and construction project I've ever done in this game. The pipes, I mean, are interesting, but they're more technical. This is just brute force at a scale I haven't worked at with before. Okay, next round planned. I am noticing we're also going through our TNT faster than we can create it. And I think what we're going to need to do is put down some more TNT factories. And I think we can probably fit in a couple over here. We'll just maybe even out some of this terrain a bit. So we'll double our TNT production. Have a couple kind of hanging over the edge there. And, you know, the other thing I'm going to try for this time, I'm also going to have the beavers cart in some supplies. So I'm going to clear a little pocket over there, and I'll just have a medium warehouse and a medium tank. It'd be high priority to be delivered. I know I've got TNT and extract relatively close, but I think at this scale that we're working on, it's probably fine to have another kind of demand depot have supplies really close to. We'll see if that gives them a little boost so the beavers don't have to walk up and down the stairs as this gets deeper and deeper. Okay, that's all set. Let's head back to work camp and get our next aqueduct planned. Well, this aqueduct is going to be interesting. I want to run all the way over here, and I want it roughly at the height that this is at. So let's see, maybe we'll do something similar to what we did in the other dam, where it's the aqueduct's maybe only 2 deep or 1 deep. So if I look down here, this one is expecting water anywhere in that range there. So this aqueduct should be somewhere around here. So if we did 3 wide, it would look something like that. But if we put platforms on there, that would make this a very shallow aqueduct, only 1 deep. So instead, I think I'm going to do something like this. A platform 1 high, followed by a little bit of overhangs, and then we can just repeat this process all the way across. And before I forget, this is going to have to be 5 wide, and that's because we're making it wide enough to hold lips for the edge of the aqueduct, like that. And this could just take a run of TNT all the way down here, where eventually we can connect it to this run of water. That is the start. Let's continue this all the way down. Next one will have to be around here. So what I'm doing to help construct this is I'm putting a platform down on the side just to measure the height that I need to go. From there, it makes it relatively easy just to plan out everything else. It's like, know that that is going to work. And that puts us pretty close to the other side. So this is going to be a little bit trickier. All right, something like that. And of course, impermeable floors are going to have to be placed all through the middle. And then we're eventually going to have to put the levees up on the side. Now for building the foundations, I think that's doable from all the ground here. They can all get to everything. And then once those foundations are done, I think they can get access to everything else. Maybe just to speed things up, we'll add an access point there, as well as maybe an access point over on this edge. Like that, and then we can plan on running the levees all the way down the edges. So I'm hoping that this aqueduct is going to go much faster than our last one, because this time we have a much bigger economy to work with. We've got lots of production. I'm hoping that this one is going to fly by pretty quick. I do have my doubts, though, that this is going to be finished in 11 days. That's going to be a little bit too quick for this, I think. Okay, aqueduct plan ready to go. And, given that these are all bots up here, I'm going to put 2 control towers down too, just in the proximity of the construction site to help them out. And make things go a little bit quicker. And you can see without the blueprint there, you can see just the foundations are starting to go in. Which, I'm impressed. We've gotten more of this done in the first, 4 days or so than I was expecting. And knowing that our building construction always gets sped up if I have nearby resources, I'm going to cart in just the things that we need. And as we're going into the last day of the drought, I'm impressed, but we actually almost built this entire aqueduct. So I think that goes to show you how powerful it is to have your resources on hand locally. Having the haulers pull everything in, the builders just going and grabbing it locally, that sped this up a lot. And with the bad tide coming to a close, I think we actually managed to pull this off. He built an entire aqueduct all the way from over here in a very short bad tide. That is crazy. And I put a few double floodgates at the end here just so I could control the water flowing off the end, because this dam isn't all the way up at height yet. Again, the ultimate goal of getting this aqueduct going is I want another source of water feeding into this. And that's going to mean we've got all of these sources all ultimately being pulled up in here and then feeding down to the rest of the map. So there's the floodgates in, and then I think the last thing we need to do is just cap off these last little spots. And we'll lay down a little bit of dynamite here, and then I think we're good to go. Well, moment of truth, I do see this starting to go across. Well, it looks like it is. It's holding water. Now, it's going to take a little bit of time to get this filled all the way to the top, because this water source is not a very strong one. In fact, you can see it's also being split 2 ways, because I still have it populating this lake. But with this lake topped off, it should finally start filling up here, and then that's going to flow all the way across, and then start populating into our dam. Look at that. Another stable source of water. And combined with our overflow in here, we might actually have to start detonating some TNT soon. So overall, a pretty good construction for our work camp of bots. Our water is looking pretty good, and we're going to go back to Junkertown, see what they're up to. Well, the quest to empty this mountain continues. In fact, I think we're almost done with this next round of TNT. And again, this was a very quick turnaround, and I think that's a lot to do with having this supply here. In fact, the last bit of TNT just finished again, so we're ready to dynamite one more layer. And my poor computer, I'm not sure if you can see that through the rendering, but with so much TNT going on, it can barely process everything. This is getting pretty ridiculous looking, and I think we still need at least another layer or 2 to this. But I think that is going to be for a future episode. So we actually accomplished quite a bit. We've got the next stage of Junkertown going on, where we've been hollowing out this entire mesa. We went and tested some pipes over in the test world so we can figure out how to improve our pipe system here. And we built this entirely new aqueduct system that we managed to crank out. So with our water situation really secure at this point, I'm really looking forward to finishing Junkertown and starting to build a really interesting city there. As always, I hope you enjoy these videos, and I hope to catch you next time.